Oh, wait a minute. The go live. I hit. Oh, what is shoot. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Keep the Mic On. As we know, we've been here every week since March of 2020 in conversation with an amazing artist. And when we say every week that we are excited about the person we are about to talk to, we mean it every week. We are excited about the person we are about to talk to. And tonight is no different. I am simply Sherry. My week is called From Behind the Microphone, where I take the time to get to know the person behind the performance, because performers are people too. So I want you to come back on the third Sunday of the month to come back here. I'm going to go ahead and kick it to the one, the only girl genius.
I somehow knew you were going to come to me because, yeah, that's what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, hey, everyone. I am Girl Genius. Great to be with you all this evening. Super excited to be here. I am first week of every month with a segment called Let's Talk About the ... typically books, but also plays and all the tangible products and, that and the thing, and I can't talk today. Sorry, I'm just coming off vacation mode. So my segment talks to people about how they get from point A to point B. Like how you come from an idea and a concept to, oh, look, I have this tangible product in my hand and all the creative thing that comes behind that. Again, first week of every month. I'm going to stop talking because apparently my brain isn't braining right now. And I'm so that's where we are. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Miss Cayenne.
Woot woot.
Woot woot. What's good, everybody? I'm Miss Cayenne. I'm a poet and I know it. Yeah, I feel you, Girl Genius. My brain is buffering a little bit, buffering. But
exactly.
But I'm here. It doesn't negate the excitement I still have for every show that we have. So I'm Miss Cayenne. My segment is called Passion Projects, the roots behind the why, where we get to talk to creatives, often poets, but singers like Girl Genius said. We collect creatives. And in my segment, we get a chance to ask them the question, but why? How did you get here? What's your story? Did you always think that you would find yourself in this space as you were younger? So we get to kind of dig a little deep in my segment. But again, it's not my segment tonight. We're excited for our guest for tonight. So we want to get into it. We want to make sure you get into it. So I'm going to kick it to the one, the only, KaNikki Jakarta.
Oh, yours was easy. You just had to point up. So you definitely, was going to have the right. Because we'd be like, which way is the way? Because it's always the opposite way. We don't be knowing. In these four squares of awesomeness, we don't be knowing.
There it is. I give up. I give up already.
Right. Man, I am so excited about this interview tonight.
So am I.
Yes, because the person that we're interviewing tonight is a person who was already on the scene when I came on the scene, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that. And I've been on the scene for a long time. I've been seen for a long, long time, right? But before I do this, before I go into my segment, let me say, because we haven't said that everybody that comes on this platform are people who volunteer their time, as we do volunteer our time every week to bring you keep the mic on. However, the platforms are not free. So if you would like to continue for us to keep the mic on, scrolling at the bottom of your screen, you'll see our Cash App. So you can drop some coinage in the Cash App so we can continue to keep the mic on. Y'all said that this is a masterclass. It should not be free. So please do support us financially. And if you're watching us on YouTube, just don't be watching, child. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe.
Yes, please.
And subscribe. And everybody that's joining us right now, please know that you'll have an opportunity. I'm interviewing tonight, but you'll have an opportunity to ask this artist some questions. So be gathering your questions so that you can type them in the comments.
All right, KaNikki, one second before you do the introduction on our guest tonight, who we are all excited to talk to and hear from. We want to do Kitmo News. We should probably come up with a good name for this segment. The Kitmo News.
I like Kitmo News.
Kitmo News. There's a lot of our artists that we have spotlighted and featured with in the past have new projects coming out, new performances, and we definitely want to shine some lights on all of them. We did Dr. Rebecca Dupas' first year roundtable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, first year roundtable. She has a new collection of books coming out, so please follow her. I saw the name and then I had forgotten the name. You think I would have put it in my notes? But they are available for pre-order now. So please.
I will find it and I will type it in the comments because I know the last word and the rest of it's escaping me. But give me 30 seconds.
But from what I see in her social media postings about it, it's a collection of 3 books. Is that what she's done? It's a novel, a journal, and poems. All is one collection.
Somebody else's blues.
Thank you. So please catch up with Dr. Rebecca Dupas for that. Also from our first year, Kevin Jackson, musician, guitarist, producer, music coordinator. He has a show coming up with a phenomenal Mesa on the first Sunday in November at Morgan University's theater. So please go to Music by Kevin Jackson to get tickets for that. I can say this, the first time I ever saw Kevin play with a band in a full concert, it was him and Mesa on the show, and it was an amazing show. And so I want everybody to go see that show because I'm not going to be in town to go.
Bummer.
Yeah. Finally, Word Slave, who is from our second year, amazing artist, has also released a new collection, is releasing a collection of books. Oh boy. All right. And of course, Spill.
I know it's called Spill. That one I know is called Spill.
The book is called Spill. So follow Word Slave and get a copy of that book. And we will keep you all more updated on what everybody else is doing. So for now, I will shut up because.
Cool. And I have posted those links and that information, except Word Slave. We don't have it yet, but we'll definitely post that in the comments. So you can definitely go back and find that as well.
Definitely.
In the comment sections. Thank you very much. Like I always say, by the time you read the bio is expired.
Amen.
Right? Because the people we interview, they're doing things. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing.
Which is a
great segue into me introducing our person that we have tonight. So my segment tonight. Thank you. Danielle, they left Danielle and took me off. So yeah, I don't know what's happening. Somebody wants to stay. See, everybody want to stay on the screen because they know it's about to be an amazing night, right? And they want to ask questions, but I get to ask all the questions. Well, not all the questions. I get to ask most of the questions. This is a perfect time for me to let you guys know that I have an amazing poet, hostess, artist extraordinaire in training. My daughter, who's 5 months old. So anytime that you hear me online, you might hear her in the background. So don't be alarmed. It's a baby. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. Let me just first say, I always ask people to send me a mini bio, right? Because the people who I interview have, resumes that's long and could be a dissertation, right? I got this very, very modest bio from who we're interviewing tonight. Let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you this. I was like, what is little baby? I said a mini bio though. I said a mini bio. So I'm gonna read it and then I'm gonna go ahead and bring him on the screen. I'm gonna read it, okay? But let me just say this does not tell you enough. So our special guest tonight, we call him Mr. Keep On Moving, keep on moving, right? Is a poet, a writer, a rapper, an author, an actor, an educator, and an artist, a well-respected writer and captivating performer. He has the ability to take any audience anywhere he wants them to go and suspend their interest within movies he films with words. His accolades include consecutive season performances on BET Lyric Cafe, works aired on VH1 Soul and MTV as well as views in The Source magazine. Above all, his fans love him. His peers respect him, and his pen trusts him. Calm is an artist among artists and will always push the envelope and the margins forward. Welcome tonight's special guest, my friend and yours, Calm, better known as Mr. Keep On Moving. We gonna, because you gotta keep moving. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. Hey, friend.
Hey, sister.
How are you?
Listen. I'm better than I've ever been, and this right here is about to be a healing.
Yes, yes, I know it is. I know it is. So listen, I have to start off by saying that Calm and I are very good friends. We became fast friends. We met, became fast friends, and then family
Yeah.
over 2 decades ago,
Time.
right? Over 2 decades ago. So it's been a long, long time. We have seen each other grow and grown um in a lot of ways over the years, so you definitely been there for each other through artistry, but been there for each other through family, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is my brother, your friend. I'm gonna ask you, can I ask you to open with a piece? Can I
Yeah.
get some? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna remove myself from the screen and let
Yeah.
the people have.
So this is actually one of my favorite poems. A newer favorite, where I feel like I wanted to encapsulate my experience in this platform, in this space. This is just what happened, or actually, this is what happens. This is called identity exchange. In a brief, bold transfer of energy, I temporarily and voluntarily gave away my identity. And so did you. But it's all right. Neither of us knew who else we were going to be tonight. But lucky for me, you got caught in my flow. Now you're lost in my identity. I wrote you in a long rhyme ago. Keep listening and you'll hear yourself. I am everywhere. You are everywhere I have been. Left a prayer in the fingerprint that stained many a woman and man. I have shaken hands across lands. I have touched the world. I am that woman in Baltimore who I so charmingly invited to my poetry spot that I started back in the early 2000s. She felt back in the early 2000s in College Park, Maryland. Finally, one Wednesday, she came down and she felt the vibe. Thought the night was real dope, but she wasn't sure if the audience would like what she wrote. I want to perform it for real, she said. I was like, don't worry about that, sis. We'll applaud it for real. The next week, she told me she wrote a poem and she wanted to read it. Jokingly, I suggested if she got nervous, I would give her my hand to hold if she needed. She started to read a poem about changing the world. She started to talk about how she was raped as a young girl and she never could talk about it until now. And she soaked the audience in her pain. Looking down at the paper, searching for confidence, but still unashamed. When the tears leaked and ran, she didn't look up. She just reached for my hand. Now here I stand holding her while she exhaled and turned the page and left a piece of herself on the stage. And on my finger, she lingers. I can still feel her when I write. One hand holding my pen, the other holding hers ever since that night. I got to reach her again and let go. Speak to her in my echoes. Let's go a few years further. I'm in a place I'd only heard of, college tour, lot of dough. But the knowledge after the show was worth a lot more. I am Juan, but they call me Juanito. He invited me to the barrio of Laredo, Texas. I always left DC and Baltimore wanting more, but it was Laredo back in '04 that made me sure I was hot. Walked up in the spot, only one looking like the bottom of the pot, and there was Mario, who looked like he got big in jail, trying to read me, looking me up and down, trying to feel my braille, but words are blind and have terrible aim, because anyone can get hit by whatever you say. What you gonna do, homie? He was already grilling me. Didn't hear me spit, already wasn't feeling me. I said what I said to this day. I'm just gonna do me. No reason to be scared when you're prepared. I live for this. If my ego dies tonight, then I willingly die for this. Go down like a fighter, resurrect like the Messiah, a better writer. Either I'm fire or I'm a liar. I thought I'm gonna give it all I got. And the more Mario grit, the harder I spit. Got sick, get a whole room HIV, and I'm just doing me. When I was done, the best compliment to come was when Mario from the barrio bought 2 CDs. That's how I knew I was tight. I still see him when I write. And this tall validation came from halfway across the nation. But I already knew I was hot. I was seeking to find what I'm not. In the faces of all who listen, looking for the same thing. And for 3 minutes, we're all willing to trade in who we are for who we can become. And you thought you were just listening to a poem. I thought I was just spitting one. We were both wrong. Kim from Baltimore, Juanito, Mario, you, me, we were becoming
Wow. Wow. I say wow. I'm saying wow because one thing I always loved about your poetry. First of all, I love some poems with a message, right? But
Mhm.
you are a great storyteller in the poetry, right? So and you had this piece. I don't remember what you said before you did it, but it was something about before I swallowed the sun.
You remember?
I took a big gulp of something. I don't know, but it was so.
You remember that? Right
Yeah.
before I swallowed the sun. I can't
Which,
even remember the next line. KJ,
oh, that's the line though. Right before when you said right before I swallowed the sun, I was like, wow. And then the piece where you said you're underground. So when I die, bury me in the sky.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, the word. Yes,
yeah.
y'all be listening.
Wow.
I'll be listening.
Man,
I'll be
you
listening.
take me back. You taking me
Yes, and
way back.
let me say this. Com was one of the first hosts that I met, right? And that hosted well. Because it was when we first started off, it was some very, 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 very bad hosts.
Yeah.
You could really teach some hosting 101 for real, for real, for real, for real. So yes, definitely a host. And as you know, this is a poets and platform show. I have to interview you as I don't know you, right? And as people who I see people in the comments, shout out to Big Homie. Somebody just said, "Hey, KaNikki and Come." I was like, "Yeah, that kind of we might need to do a show, KaNikki and Come." I don't know, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I mean, shout out to the people who definitely already know you, right? But the purpose of this is to reintroduce you, to get to know things. The reason we do this show is because we get to know the artist. We don't get to know the person behind the artist, right? But that's one of the reasons why your why, getting to know your why. And definitely my platform is about my week is about platforms as well, because we are artists who does art but provides platforms for the art, which is a whole different type of art, right?
Yeah.
It's a whole different type of art. And to do that, right, and not be selfish in, you could just go do shows. Because you could just do shows that people book you and just perform, right? But to have a respect for that and know that there is a need for that, right? And nobody can support an artist like an artist, right? Can introduce you. We're gonna make sure that we have the information from you. I'm sure you've done shows before. People just said your name wrong, didn't read the bio, don't know nothing about you. You know what I'm saying? You got to reintroduce yourself. So I'm sure you've had those performances. You know what I'm saying? But being an artist, you know how an artist should be treated, right? Yeah. So we need to start with the writing part. So how long have you been writing?
So I like this question and I don't like this question. The reason I say I like this question is because it takes me back to 7th grade. And so what happened with me, like my life is just, and this is why I'm here. My life has been one divine curveball. 7th grade, I'm in Mr. Fast, FASS. And this is a short, fat, white dude, bald head. And he was cool, because he was comfortable with himself, but he was easy fodder for a bunch of 12-year-olds from Brooklyn who, most of us are Caribbean, sitting in the back of the class, not really interested in what's going on up front. So he's talking to us about Shakespeare. And we like, come on, dude. Nobody want to hear this, man. Like, and we're giving him a hard time. And Mr. Fast is the reason why I am here. He said something to me that started this entire thing. He said, if you don't like it, go home and write your own. Been writing ever since. Been writing ever since.
Wow.
That's how I started writing. Wow. And my first poem was a poem called "The Woman by the Tree." I've been so, and that kind of was indicative of my lane, or one of the lanes that I really embodied over the past 20-some years was, just love, you know what I mean? I ain't gonna say love poetry, but just love, like being a Virgo, just being in love with love and loving women, and then specifically loving Black women. That's just been something I've been very unapologetic and vocal about and what I write about, what I most enjoy writing about, a lot of times comes from that space. So Mr. Fast started me out, and then what happened was I wrote the poem, and I came in, and I think I asked him if I could read it. I think I asked him, and when I, and then you got a new backdrop. I am a real live Steve Urkel, Stefan Urkel, like real life. I was just came from Jamaica 2 years ago. Prior to that, I was very awkward, very, coming from a dysfunctional home, a lot of religious suppression and sheltering, a lot of, identity weirdness. Like, I'm 14 years old. I'm gonna go further a little bit. I'm 14 years old. I just remember this because this is when it happened. I'm 14 years old, ninth grade of high school. And I just remember I could sing you, I forgot how this came up in the conversation. I could sing you all the words to a Randy Travis country song. Or any, quite a few of the artists out at that time, but didn't know one word about Marley. And I had just got here 4 years ago at that point. So a lot of identity, challenges that, were started then, rooted then, and came into my adulthood and showed up, which is what we're going to get into in this interview, as to what I've been dealing with for the past 8 years and why I've been quiet. And this is my first time actually, coming to a public space and vocalizing and talking about what's happened. So Mr. Fast got me starting writing. And then when I read the poem, somebody, I forgot who, I feel like it was Dwayne. Somebody was like, yo, you ain't write that. You got that out of a magazine or a book. For an awkward kid who didn't fit in with anybody, a whole light bulb went off. Like, oh, that's something I could do. And so I just kept at it. And my writing was always for me. Like there's a poem I have called Selfish, where I'm like, yo, I don't write for y'all. Like, I really don't. I still don't. It's always been therapy for me. You know what I mean? And I used to describe my journals as a big ear, and I'm just writing across the ear, because that's just where I wanted the words to fall on, because there's nobody else to listen or even come close to understanding. So it's always been a very selfish, self-centered, space for me. But it started with Mr. Fast.
Wow. From 7th grade. Mm-hmm. And then from then, where did you, the fact that you said, you wrote your own, right? Mm-hmm. But the fact that you said, let me read it, or was willing to read it, whether he asked you or not, right? Mm-hmm. That's a whole different thing to be able to, because it's a vulnerable thing to stand up, especially that young.
Yeah.
To stand up and read it.
With
the fear of being laughed at, because you're 7th grade, you don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I'm writing about a woman. It was about that. It was, I don't remember the poem. It was called "The Woman by the Tree," and it was about me seeing this woman by the tree and being, enamored with her, walking by every day or every so often, and wanting to speak to her, and for whatever reason, not being able to. But it's when I've never been shy, for real. But at the same time, like, there was no reference for me, nor did I ever have a tribe or a group. Like, I just hopped into different spaces, figuring it out and trying to find myself. So that time, I just felt like it was something that I was, passionate about, as passionate as a 7th grader can be, a 12-year-old can be. And at the same time, like, I was like, what do I have to lose? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to share it because you asked me to do something. And I'm the kind of dude, and I've always been this way, and I'm still this way. If you mention a book to me, I'm going to read it. And I'm going to pull up on you and be like,
I can attest to that.
Yeah. Yes, you can.
I can attest to that.
Yes, you can. Yeah. So he mentioned this opportunity to me, and it just resonated with me. And the resonation didn't end until I was able to share with you what you inspired me to do. So you asked me, or you challenged me, and I wanted to share with you what this challenge produced. So that's what that was about.
Wow, that's amazing. And you spoke a little bit about, you had just came from Jamaica. So as y'all know, he's not from here, Jamaica. So how? Well, see, you moved, but you were young, so that might not be the best question. I was gonna ask, how is, because you really wasn't writing. You weren't writing until you was in this class. Yeah. Right. So you started writing here.
And I didn't move. It's not move. My mother moved. Me and my brother were kidnapped. And that's the real deal. Like, that's what happened. So, that's one of the things I wanted to speak about here is like the rooting of my childhood trauma and how it manifested itself in my adulthood and how I just healed from that.
Right.
And last Tuesday was a big display of that healing. You know what I'm saying? So it's a very big deal where I speak to this issue and I speak on this issue very explicitly. And the thing is, and I like this fact that we're in a one-on-one space because I'm finding that when you start talking, you start pressing sensitive buttons. And the thing, my life has been one big button. People want to, our people, and I love our people, want to feel like they're somehow entitled to add their 2 cents or opinions in it. And I really want to get to a space, and when I can start my own podcast where it's like, listen, I want us to be clear on the value of listening and clear on the value of if you can't add value to a space, it's okay to be quiet. It doesn't matter what your credentials
That's a
are.
word.
It's okay to be quiet, and it's okay to let somebody speak on their experience, especially if you have nothing to add or have never been in those shoes. So my mother kidnapped my brother and I, and I was 10, he was 13, and took us from Jamaica to Brooklyn, New York. And I asked my brother this a couple of years ago. He doesn't remember, but this is one of those things that I will never forget. She looked at us in the airport. We went from Jamaica to Canada to visit an aunt, and then we were supposed to go to England. The flight, something happened. My mother worked for the airline, so we were supposed to go to England. Something happened. We didn't go. We went from Canada to New York. We're in the airport with the bags, and my mother says to us, conversation. Oh, by the way, boys, we're not going back. We live here now. And that's how I
What?
came here. Yeah.
What?
And I'll never forget that. I was looking up at her, and I'm 10 years old. So that's how I came here. And then we were here illegally. So not only were we like illegal, right? But my mother is a religious. I think the term zealot would be like most appropriate. Hey, Kara, I'm just seeing some family talk to me. Listen, I
Yeah.
still owe you that picture. I didn't forget. I still owe you that picture. But let me come back to it. So my mother was not one of those people who I would say makes the healthiest decisions. And that was never really addressed in any way, shape, or form. Just the way African American people do, and the way people in the church do. And then it turned into I never spoke to any of my family again from 10 years old till that was 1987 till 2020, 2 years ago, when the pandemic hit, and I started to go, wait a minute. So backing it up a little bit, we were here under the illegal demonstration, so we couldn't really talk about anything to do with anything. We were here, we were super religious, couldn't hang out with anybody who was not saved. Hey Sanjo. Couldn't hang out with anybody who was not saved. And then on top of that, like, it was this identity thing where couldn't play any music in the house that was not Christian music. Somehow country music was
Right.
okay. So it was just this suppression of everything. And underneath that, like, I have so many questions that were not being answered, and just needs were not being met. And it just turned into, like, I can't explain to you what it does when you're taken from your family at 10 years old, and every Christmas passes, every birthday passes, every Christmas, and you're just given more reasons why we should not be in touch with these people, but that's all you know. Then there's a family above us on the second floor that was my Brooklyn family, who I connected with at 11 years old. Our Dave was 9. Phil might be watching this right now. Phil was 5 and Paul was 1. And we became like this. Those my other brothers. That was my other family. Their mom was like a mother to me. And so we moved through life together. And then a few years later, I get into the church myself, just because that's usually what happens when you're a PK. And then luckily, and I'm going to say this way, luckily there was something in me that I've always trusted, that I've always known since I was here. It's the same thing that when I was praying as a little boy, my mother would always tell this story. I was like 9 years old, that I prophesied that we were coming to America. Like, we were praying, and I remember that, though. I remember that experience. I remember the words. I remember what I felt. I remember what I saw. I remember the plane. That thing, that same thing when I was 21 now was telling me that something about this isn't okay. And I almost had a nervous breakdown. I had to walk away from everything and everybody that I knew, because at that point, something in me was telling me that everything I believed was questionable. I'm going to use kind language and say something is very questionable about this. And it's like, how do you go to your mother, your second mom, your Brooklyn brothers, your brother, and say, hey, everything that y'all know, everything that we're doing, yeah, I can't. How do you do that? So I just walked away, and I kept walking for 22 years, and so what's happening now today in 2022 started in 2014 and hit a crescendo in 2020. And for the last 2 years, like, I've been healing from all of that, and some of the things that it did to me, and some of the effects that it had on me, and some of the challenges it put in my life path, which are irreversible, very damaging, like incredibly damaging, hard to vocalize because people are like, what? And then also very isolating because it puts me up against some of the institutions that us as Black people, that's all we know, and that's where we gather our identity and value from. And here I am going, something ain't right.
It's so good. Talam has a poem, and when he says you have to come back forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, like all those questions that you have, right? You're trying to go back and get the answers. Sometimes people don't have the answers, right? I was talking to a real good friend of mine about, healing. Like, you don't know, like us as Black people, we got whoopings as a child, right? So then we continue with the whoopings as a child, right? But some people, we got beat, you know what I'm saying? And then you like, well, I got beat, but I'm okay. You are? You know what I'm saying? So it's sometimes the people that you're talking to don't realize that it's something they need to be healed from.
Mm-hmm.
They don't look at it as people don't know that they've been traumatized, right? Yep. So sometimes you're going back and you're trying to figure out some stuff from your life. You're asking some questions or whatever. Mm-hmm. What do you do with the questions that you won't get answers to? How do you move forward from that?
That is a great question. And here is the answer. Because one of the things that we've been told that's not true is that we don't have the answers. KJ, we have all the answers. You have every answer you'll ever need.
You may have the answer, but what I'm saying to you is, when you're asking a question to someone, if I've done something to harm you, right, and you're going to ask me this question, I'm not giving you an answer. I'm not getting how do you move forward from that?
Got you. So what, and I've started creating some pieces on this for people to be able to utilize as tools, as when you are the healthy agent in an unhealthy space, what do you do? How do you manage? How do you negotiate? So I see where you're going. My bad. I was going somewhere else. So you manage that person according to your best interest. Okay. You manage your interaction with that person. You manage the conversation. You manage the consistency. You manage the frequency of those interactions. And you have to do that because, I can't speak to my mother now. I tried to talk to my mother in 2014 when U died, and say, hey, and I remember, no, an even better one. This was 2017. Somebody convinced me to call her, a good friend of mine, and was like, say, and I said, Ma, there's some things that happened when I was a kid that just really, really challenged me. Great, to your point. My mother said, that stuff is still bothering you?
Wow.
I go, that is the wrong answer. And I go, okay. So I had to back up and go, okay, so that is what it is. I am who I am. So now what I got to do is go, okay, this is a relationship that I feed. It's definitely not mutual. Okay. So I feed it on my terms. So the answer to your question is to manage these relationships on the terms that work best for you.
That's a great question. But I do want to go back to the question that you was answering that you thought was the question, right?
Oh,
definitely.
All the answers.
Yes, definitely. We having all the answers. And, I think I read somewhere I read it somewhere. I think I was traveling somewhere and I saw something that said you were born with everything you need.
You need. Yep. Yep.
Right?
Listen, when I tell you that, there aren't enough letters in the word alone to describe the last 8 years for me. But at the end of the day, I've also learned the key to, and when I say the key is we have been taught what's called the external God concept. We've been taught to speak to a God that exists in some space outside of us. When you were born, right, your inhalation or your breath was or is your umbilical cord to your source. There is no other entity involved. There's no other entity that was there when you was born. There's none that's going to be there. There's none that's going to show up. So what we've been taught, we also got to understand needs to be questioned. And I think that's how we fall in, and we've fallen into the trap where we're in this country and around the world, is we don't ask enough questions, and the question, the question simply is, well, where's this information coming from? What's the source of this information? We don't vet anything. We don't verify anything. We just accept it from grandma. And in my case, I had a mom who was very questionable. So it's like when somebody's questionable, everything is questionable. So the fact that you're a preacher, the fact that you're a religious woman, doesn't excuse you from these very questionable decisions that you've made on my behalf that affected my life at 10, 11, 12 years old, where me at 10, 11, 12 years old is going, you're not okay. So everything becomes questionable. So if you're speaking on it, I'm immediately going, I don't know, just because you're speaking on it. And, when you think of God, and when you think of faith, when you think of spirituality, the question always needs to be asked, like, okay, whatever you're looking at, where did it come from? Where did it start?
Yeah.
And just that
we just accept. Or we continue. We accept and we continue whatever we're taught, right? Mm-hmm. We don't question that. And then if we do, it is, you have lost your mind. Right.
So to answer your question, I started asking some serious questions. And 2 years ago, I got on the phone with my father, my physical father, who I've spoken to, I'm going to be generous and say 10 times in life, and at the time I was 42. I'm going to be generous and say 10. And I asked this dude, how come you didn't pick up the phone? And he goes and breaks this whole scenario down to me where the timeline, I asked him for a timeline, and he left my mother in Jamaica in 79. They've been married 7 years. I was 2 at the time. My birthday didn't come up yet. I was 2. My brother was 5. And his thing was he's leaving to go to another country to go to Bible school. And I go,
okay.
Nah, who does that? How is that okay? How did you get in? What was the background check? What was the screening process? You got a whole family that you leaving, a wife of 7 years and 2 children, 5 and 2, to go to Bible school? That makes absolutely no sense. How did you get in?
School lasted a week.
Either way, you got to go to a whole other country.
Right.
And then you never come back. When you do come back, you come back with a whole other family. The whole other family is a woman that you tell me out your mouth used to change my Pampers. Her and my mother were friends.
Wow.
We were all in the same church. So you divorce her through correspondence and fly this other lady up, marry her, and now you and her have been together 40 years, 30 years, have a whole other family. And I've talked to you like 10
times,
maybe. So now I go, okay, let's just look at this in a natural. This is what cued this question right here. 2020, I go, there's a pandemic. George Floyd just got murdered like a dog in the street from these things that, are running the country. And I go, you know what? Pandemic, people getting murdered, getting bodied. If something came out of you, it might be a good idea to keep in touch with it. Just natural, basic instinct, just basic. And that's what cued me to start making phone calls. And this second round of phone calls and reaching out. That's how I reached out to my father. I reached back out to a couple people who, my trauma was, if you do me something wrong, it ain't even got to be heavy, Shadi. I used to call it the Virgo chop, but it ain't, it's so much bigger than the Virgo. I'll deuce anybody up quickly. Like,
Right.
they boot you up, like delete your number out my phone. Like, it's not even and not realize, you know, I used to crutch on that, thinking it was some kind of skill, not realizing that was trauma in itself. Just repeating because I was kidnapped and my family was taken away from me. And it's like, if you
did you know, when did you realize you were kidnapped?
That's a good question.
I mean, because it's your mother, so you definitely have to, like, so that's something to address, right? To circle back to, right? Because parents can kidnap their kids, right? So you think I'm with my mama? This is not a kidnapping. You understand what I'm saying? So at some point you realize
something was wrong, but at the end of the day, she kept putting it in our heads that our grandmother, our father's mother, whose house we were at, my father was one of 8 kids, and we were at a big compound house. All 8 of the kids as adults still lived there until they left. And so it was plenty aunties, cousins, nieces, nephews, all of that. And at some point, it was just, she just kept feeding us that my grandmother was the bad guy. And it was 2 years ago that I learned that that wasn't true.
Wow.
You know, from various other aunties and people who were not in the same room, same country, telling me stories of what actually happened. And their stories lined up. And then it's just, as an adult, you go, so what part of the parenting is taking your child away from everything they know, bringing them to a whole other country, and there is just no contact? There's no nothing. It's not okay because you feel away because you and them weren't getting along.
Right. That's why.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
That is not okay. You know, so one of the things that I want to really institute in my coming out and speaking on it is, you know, KJ, like I've always felt like I was I'm gonna say this. I've never said this publicly because it's just something I can't read. I've always felt like I was a superhero. I had superhero syndrome. You know what I mean? And it was a funny thing because I would get on a plane, and so this is the kind of superhero syndrome in a weird way, right? I would get on a plane, and there would be some turbulence, and I swear to God, I might have told you that. I swear to God, I was like,
you have. That's what I'm smiling.
Yeah, it can't cry because I'm on it, and I got something to do, right? But I use the term superhero. But, you know, it's the best thing that I can think of because now it's about being catalytic. It's not about talking anymore. It's not about writing poems anymore. It's about changing the paradigm, changing what Black people believe, changing how we move, and changing it because the question needs to be asked is how we're moving as a unit, community, functional, connected or not. That in itself, is that working? Or how well is it working? And if it's not working, then it needs to be, you know what I mean? It needs to be addressed. So my thing is creating things, and I'm dealing with, you know, I got another friend of mine who's a well-respected poet in this area who's dealing with something very similar to me. And I'm going, okay, here's what we can do. As Black people, Black men, we can create a movement, a group of men, group of people who say, we're going to move on this way and be consistent about it to create change in the area of what I call poor parenting. You know what I mean? I'm an overcomer of poor parenting. And I have another brother who's telling me he's dealing with something similar. And I go, let's get some brothers together and let's change.
That'd be awesome.
And we're not involving anybody outside of our community. We're not involving the oppressors who lead this country. We're doing this completely independently because our solutions need to come from us. So that's where I'm at with it right now. And I just turned 46, you know what I mean? So to me, I'm not asking nobody nothing. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, let's make it happen. And it's about being catalytic and knowing what it is you were called to do, your purpose in life, and moving on that. You're muted.
Sorry. How does one, I had to mute because, you know, the baby is trying to be part of the conversation, right? So how does one who says that they write for themselves and uses poetry as therapy, what does one do who steps away from poetry for 8 years? How do you, if that's the therapy for you, were you writing?
Listen,
what happened? What's you gonna do for therapy?
I had to die. I had to die. Like I really had to. I stopped everything. So here's why I stopped. And I just saw a video with Jahidi today, man. Oh my God.
Shout out to Jahidi. Yeah. We need to get Jahidi and high five to the sky on Ooh, since you mentioned him as well.
So so here I am outside in every circle, alone in every room, just, just always never really connect because of what happened to me. I never connected with people. So I'm in the poetry community and I'm doing my thing. And again, it's very, I wrote Rebecca a note on Facebook the other day, was talking about how, she had this poem called My Apologies. And that poem really verified to me and validated to me that I needed to just create my own lane, walk down that lane, and let that be all to what I'm doing. I'm doing my thing, walking down my lane in Alaska, then Fly Gypsy happened, and this happened, whoa. And some big college tours, some big things are happening for me, right? I'm doing some big things in some ways, still struggling in other ways with some, it's just up and down. 2014, Ooh passes away. And the funny thing, I'm living in DC at the time. I that Sunday night, I'm feeling really restless in myself. I walk around Adams Morgan, come back, cut all my hair off. Now my hair was thinning. I was having some issues with my locks because they weren't done right. Blah, 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 blah. My stylist said, cut it off. That's the best way to start. I ain't want to do that. Came in the house, was like, man, I don't care. Cut it all off. The next morning, 10 o'clock that morning, Energy calls me from Jersey and tells me, yo, did you hear that Ooh just died? And I was like, are you lying? She's like, no, he just died yesterday. He died last night. I'm like, wow. Now, me and Ooh weren't even that tight. Knew him, loved him, respected him, but we weren't chilling. You know what I mean? So his death technically shouldn't have rocked me the way it did. He died June 1st. A month later, 10 days later, I woke up. And when I say I woke up, June 10th, I realized that one day I'm going to die too. 38 years old, that thought never occurred to me. Never occurred to me.
Never occurred to you?
Never occurred to me. Like, so June passed, July comes now. We're at Poets in the Park in Baltimore. And Jahidi is there with Oo's 4-year-old daughter at the time, Neves, chocolate little princess. She's just adorable. They singing Fishbowl, and she is struggling to hold the mic and sing the words to Oo's verse in Fishbowl. And it's like there wasn't a dry eye in the spot. And at the time, it just hit me going, bruh, yo, my daughter's 12. She doesn't know any of the words to anything I've ever done. What are you doing? You know what it's like to have your father not be around. Why would you do that to somebody else? And I wasn't completely absentee like my father was, but I wasn't connected. I wasn't winning no awards. It was all GP for me. You know what I mean? I'm not going to hold you. I ain't had nobody to talk that about, and I damn sure ain't gonna write a poem about it. But that's one of the things we need to address, like these kinds of trauma responses that we have no air for. No, we can't give audience or get audience for it. So it just woke me up and said, yo, I need to correct this. So I walked away from it all going, if my child that came out of my body can't be a part of it, then it ain't no never be right.
Right.
So the big flex last Tuesday, September 13th, remember that wasn't last Tuesday before. Fast forward, skipping over a whole lot because I know I'm long with it. My 20-year-old daughter, I was able to put a show together at the Busboys in Columbia. And I went and got her. She's in college. I went and kidnapped her. Just the way the creator had it. Like, she's 40 minutes away. I snatched her up, bring her to Columbia, say, hey, we're going to go get your nails done right across the street. She calls me, her nails are ready. I come pick her up, and she walks into a show where people are holding up her name. Her name is Future. You know what I mean? And she's walking in like, what in the world? Femi's on the mic like, hey, Future. She's like, what is going on? And my daughter gets to see me perform for the first time in life.
That's the first time your daughter ever saw you perform?
Life.
Wow.
Talk to me nice. Like I'm healing this. Like I'm turning it all the way. And that's my flex now. That's my flex. Like that's that's the platform I'm standing on now. It ain't poetry, rhyme, and blah, blah, blah. No, I healed from absenteeism and kidnapping and repeating that cycle. And now my daughter knows. My daughter is no longer in the club of, when that parent dies, just text me. Because there's a lot of us.
Yeah.
A lot of us. And those parents that we talking about they good in the church. And it just is what it is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's a whole wave of now brothers who I am now speaking with to say, we're invested in our children. We want to heal. We want to get into a good space with our children, but we have these issues with it. So now I'm having conversations with these brothers. You know, two of them were at the show that night. The DJ, who's my brother, and another poet who I'll just leave out the conversation just to say, you know, respecting his story or whatever. But me and him, I'm seeing him tomorrow. And I'm like, bro, last week he just went in, I hooked him up with something, and he was able to go see his daughter, who was 6 years old, and hadn't seen her in 4 years. And he saw her for the first time last Wednesday because of the conversation that me and him had, and how I said, you know what I mean? So
that's amazing.
Listen, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm on now. It's so much bigger than poetry. It's so much big. It's healing in real life, you know, and healing for both ourselves and our children.
Yeah, because I think sometimes as artists we're focused kind of on leaving a legacy, right? But we're not focused on living the life right now, right? So you're looking at all, you know, leaving the legacy behind, but you're not living the life. You got to live the life and be present. So yeah, definitely. So congratulations on that. That's amazing. Happy belated birthday to you. Shout out to all the Virgos who are watching. I love me some Virgos. I'm a Capricorn. That is my mate sign. I have plenty of Virgo friends. I married a Virgo and things and such. Okay, so yeah, definitely shout out to the Virgo. Baby, what is the problem? Okay, so the baby having some questions and things. Listen, your bio. Let's talk about how some of these things happen, right? Because your bio says that she was on BET Lyric Cafe for seasons. Like, you know, this is the thing. When people get to do these type of things, how? I was interviewing Sekou, and then Sekou said something like, and then I was on MTV or no, I forgot it was something he did, and I said, no, how did you know? Take a pause, and how did you do it? Tell us how. It said anything. Tell us BET or VH1 or something. Tell us how.
So specifically, BET was a relationship. It's a relationship between a poetry promoter who, when BET was casting for Lyric Cafe, they didn't do it like Def Poetry Jam. It wasn't like, I don't know how Def Poetry Jam did it, but they reached out to this one promoter out of Miami, and she set it up with a bunch of poets. And I don't know who she knew at BET, but they reached out to her, and she just made the call to a bunch of poets. And I had been going back and forth to Miami. You know, Miami was like my second home for a minute. I had a Miami phone number for a minute, right? I just knew. But anyway, so she reached out to me, and she reached out to a couple other artists in this area that she knew. I recommended a couple artists, and we filled out the cast that way. So it was a relationship with MTV. I'm not gonna hold you. Like, it helps to have a publicist.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Give us the word.
Because publicists speak for you. And it's very hard to get to the gatekeepers directly. Gatekeepers don't want to talk to artists. Gatekeepers want to speak to your publicist to make sure that you're calibrated as an artist for this particular platform, right? What's up, Jonathan? I see you, bro. For this particular platform. On The Wire I auditioned for. Thank you. I forgot about that. I'm seeing it go. What's up, bro? The Wire I actually auditioned for. I used to be heavy into the acting circuit as well. Hey, Nisi. I used to be heavy in the acting circuit as well. So just, you know, one of those things that you do to supplement your income when you're a full-time artist grinding. So I was acting, and I was in a play that this one brother had a plug to, I forget her name. She's a very popular casting director in Baltimore. So I heard they was casting for The Wire. So I went and auditioned, and I got a part opposite Method Man. And this was before cell phone.
Method
Man! KJ, listen to me when I tell you. I'm happy I'm selfish with mine, right? Because before social media, before IG, all of that, this was like 07 for real. This is a minute ago. I'm in a scene next to Method Man, and the scene took 2 days. I had one line. The scene took 2 days, and I'm in a scene next to Method Man.
2 days, one line.
One line, yep. And the scene did what it did, and they chopping up. They, you know, break, cut, blah, 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 blah. I swear to God, my right hand to me and Method Man are spitting 16s at each other, going back and forth. And Method Man, this is one of the reasons why I'm the way I am. People say what they say. Method Man stamped me. He was like, yo, you fire, my guy. You got Bob. Method Man gave me the stinky face. He was like, oh, you got, you know what I mean? I ain't need nothing else from nobody. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that really stamped me. And put me in a great headspace to know that what I was doing was received by people who I genuinely respected and looked up to, and I just needed to keep going.
Yes, thank you so much. Let me just say, thank everybody so much for the shout out on the baby, who I usually don't have on no social media, no film of things. I think she probably heard Com's voice and was trying to get over here, because now she's just over here chilling. So I think that's probably what it was. So yeah, so I got to hold her and interview now, because yeah. But you said something very powerful. You a publicist is something that you should have.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get that? You just Google a publicist? How do you find a publicist?
You can like anything else. It's like once you make a call, let's say so at one point I had a publicist, and I'm gonna give you a little bit of game. Now this is when you really want to, I take what I do very seriously. I take what I do very seriously to the point of, when I started touring and I started seeing how I could go on stage for 45 minutes and come back with a 4-figure check, I was like, oh no, we gonna have to do something with this. So one of the things that you'll have happen is when you are looking for a publicist or looking to get into a particular gatekeeper, right? They'll tell you, have your publicist contact us. So if you make that call, you will hear those words. Have your publicist contact, blah, 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 blah. This is a piece of game that I'm gonna give you. One of the publicists that we had, I was in a group. One of the publicists that we had was an email address. It was not a person. It was an email address.
Come on with it. Come on. I've done that.
And then I think Ryan Leslie, shout out to our Les. Ryan Leslie tells a story of him calling record labels and saying, hey, this is Ryan Leslie's manager. Yeah, and speaking for him, because you couldn't necessarily afford one at the time, but you knew how the game worked. So, being creative about it just says, if you know that's what you need, maybe you can fill that need without filling that need. And if anybody wants more information, just holler at me. You know what I mean? I'll put you up on game even more. But at the end of the day, these are very crucial points to getting to the next level. And this is people who take their art seriously and want to do bigger things than, what it is, their local circuit. You don't need a publicist for your local open mic circuit. You know what I mean?
Right. You don't. Right. Yes. That's some game. Like I said, I've done it. I thought it was just me. But I see it's not just me. I've definitely done it. Speak for me, I've done it. But thank goodness I have an assistant now who does all my publicist work. Shout out to Keisha. Yes, because it's a hard job when you're trying to be an artist and manage yourself. It is a hard job. It is a hard job. Yeah. So we definitely. So you are. Let me ask this question. I usually say this for later in the interview, but when people say, what do you do for a living? What do you say?
Now a brother got a job. You feel me? And I feel like I'm starting to learn to not speak negatively about my path. Because, when people used to say, I wouldn't change anything, I look at them like, huh? There's a lot I would change. The full-time artist thing to me is not the smartest way to you limit yourself from a lot of opportunities. Okay. I feel like for me, if I was able to do it over, I would have kept the job that would have been able to pay for the things that I needed, you know what I mean, and allowed me the freedom to create opportunities, that I wouldn't have had because I just didn't have the bread. So now I have a job now, and I'm also an entrepreneur. I run a digital branding agency called KBBK Brand Management. Those are my initials, KB from BK. And so, if anybody is, and actually I'm getting into artist management now. Like I got 2 artists that I'm looking at managing, and we're talking about management. I forgot the one sister who was talking about helping people take, I think it was Girl Genius, go from concept to actual tangible brand. I do that as well with clients. I got a chef who's a client is a chef, a rapper. Who else I got? I got she's a coach. So I help folks with their concept of branding in terms of what it is that they're speaking in a public space, what elements of their brand they're actually delivering to the public. I help them. I do websites, I do logos, I do graphic design. And some of the stuff I broker. I don't necessarily design myself. I get somebody else to do it and just charge for it. So it's a whole digital hustle, and I like that because then I can do that from anywhere. Like I'm getting ready to go out of town, and I still have meetings and I have editing sessions that I can all do virtually. So I run my own business, and it's it's paying me some money, but at the same time I also have a job, and my job, real quick. So this is the divine. This is how the divine has been on my side, right? Last year, I find this job. Craigslist has been something that I've been hustling off of for years, just again supplementing income. I found this little gig on Craigslist, working with my job now, and it was at Camden Yards. So I go to Camden Yards, and that's April 8th. So my daughter reached out to me in 2020, in May of 2020. She's going to college. She goes to college in August of 2020. So this is now May of 2021, last year. So I get the job in April. Coming towards the end of May, I email her and say, hey, little mama, you getting ready to come home from school. Do you have a job yet? She said, no. I said, well, luckily, just the way my job was, and I'm this very short story, or short 10 story. I said, well, the way my job is right now, if you want one, you have one. Just pull up. And I'm the manager. So my daughter went from 5 years away from me to 5 feet in front of me. I hired her. Now she's working with me for the summer. This is her summer job. We working together. And so that's May, because she goes back to school in August. September, I get a random, again, the divine opportunity to move with my job to Las Vegas. I'm living in Las Vegas now, and I'm managing Vegas, San Jose, Denver, and Austin. And so I'm going back and forth between Vegas and San Jose. And this is September. October, for Halloween, the only condition under which I took the job was, okay, I need to be able to fly my daughter to wherever I'm working, and I need her to be able to work with me at that location. I'm the manager, so I control the schedule. So they were like, okay, cool. I fly my daughter out to San Jose. Great time. She's working. We take a picture.
That's amazing.
February, I'm in Vegas. I fly her out for the Pro Bowl game. And she has a ball. She loves Vegas. We put her up in the Sahara. Fire.
Really? You should have flew me. Y'all would have been your dependent. You could have said, let me.
We had a ball, so my job allowed me the opportunity to just flex on my daughter. You know what I mean? And I don't know how much time we got left, so I'm kind of blah, 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 blah. But I really want to get to my son, because he's next. He's next. And my thing, I was talking about being a superhero earlier. I feel like my superhero mission is to save my children from my bad decisions.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And that's just what it is. And for me, I think it's very important to own your decisions. Now, I own the space that I was in. That's
a whole word right there.
Listen, the space that I was in when I made these moves, you know what I mean? And where I was at, and never forget where I was at, because the definition of a bad decision is if you look back at it and go, would you do that again? No, absolutely not. So I'm just like, yo, y'all got the right one. Y'all got the right one, because I'm not going to be, I came up, my father was I don't know if we can curse on him. My father was an F boy. You know what I mean? Like, for real, like, you're going to look me in my face or on the phone 2 years ago and tell me when I go, why didn't you pick up the phone? Oh, we had lots of good conversations. Oh, for real? My bad. Maybe I forgot. Remind me.
Right.
1980. Nigga, I was 4.
What good conversation could you ever had?
How do you fix your mouth to say that to somebody at 70 years old? How do you do that? So, he's gone. I got off the phone and called my auntie. She was like, yo, what's wrong with your brother? Like, what do you mean? So anyway, I come from some very questionable mental health spaces. So me now being the agent of change, it's like, listen, y'all got the right one. And I'm not about to flex on nobody, right? Because, I'm not a violent dude, but I'm not going to hold you. Like, maybe it's the Brooklyn, maybe it's whatever. Like, there was some thoughts of, yo, I need to stay away from you because you remind me of my mother. And you're triggering me right now. You're making me want to like just, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not thinking healthy thoughts. And I'm not going to jail for nobody.
Right.
Especially a poor decision. Nobody. So I'm like, you know what? Watch how I move though. Watch how I move. Because again, if you show me the book, I'm gonna read it. So when the creator showed me, what was going on with me in 2014, as far as my awakening, and me going, my father did this to me. Why would I do this to my dog? Oh no. So I just swooped in. I just swooped in, all guns. You know what I mean? Like not blazing, but effort. Like it was all, this is gonna be hard. This is gonna be awkward. This is gonna be weird. I don't know how to do. But that's when I had to really trust myself to go. Whatever I do, I can't make a mistake here, because the ultimate W is me showing up.
Right.
Once I'm here, I win. And so we're going to figure out the details, but we already won. I'm here and I'm not going nowhere. And I communicated that to her. One of the things I ask people, and my bad, I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm just say this and I'm gonna shut up, is one of the things I ask people is, talk to me nice, right? What's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life that you're so glad you did? Mine was going back to my 13-year-old daughter and apologizing to her. And saying, hey, my bad. My father did this to me, so it had me in a certain space. And I was repeating that. But now that I'm aware of that, I'm not going to do that anymore. Okay. And then owning that and then showing up for that and then being there through the crazy conversations. My daughter's mom had her looking crazy in the streets, like crazy, and just eating that. And now I'm taking my daughter to Vegas, man. Talk to me nice, shot. Like, you know what I mean? Like we just do certain things, how we move, nails down, boom. I have her looking like how, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like, it's never too late, and I'm not making up for lost time. So anybody in that situation, those are two things to get out of your mind.
Start from now.
All you have is right now. All you have right now, and your investment in right now, you see later, right? So for me, it's just being there and being present and gaining strength from how hard this is. Knowing I don't have no. Last time I said this, KaNikki almost beat me up. I was like, I don't have no family, right? Yeah. KJ is my family. 13 is my family now, but the blood,
and this baby,
my little niecey. Well, I just got a text message today on WhatsApp that an uncle of mine just passed away today in England.
Oh, no.
Seen him once in life, you know what I mean? Talked to him maybe 5 times on the phone, you know what I mean? So it's like, my daughter's the only family I got, and my son, right? We're going to talk about that. You got the right one.
Somebody just said son?
Exactly. We're going to talk about that. But at the end of the day, talk to me nice, you know what I mean? Because my flex is healing for the sake of my children, for the sake of my family, for the sake of being a better example than just somebody out here with slick words on the stage saying something to making people snap. Like, that's cool.
Right.
That's cool. But what's your life like? Talk to me. To me.
That's what I'm saying. The best thing I can say, because I feel like this is definitely like a healing session. And this is, let me say, conversations that we've definitely had, right? Because I said, your friends or your family that you choose, right? So you have gone around and build a family for people who, feel like they're biological, because we feel like, our biological family should be there, right? And a lot of times that's not the thing, right? We think we're born into a family, they should be there for us. That's what they're supposed to do to their family. And sometimes that's not. Sometimes that doesn't happen, right? So then you can still, shout out to Slim Williams, who said family is, always said, his family is his friends that he chose, right? So definitely, yeah. But the best thing I can say about you and your daughter is the healing, the great healing about that part is that you knew how she felt.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that you knew how she felt, right? Because it's something that's been done to you, then that's the best thing. That's the best healing. Like, I know where you are. I know how you feel because I felt that way, and I'm trying to heal it. So it's good on breaking that, that generational curse. Anybody that's listening,
what you're tapping on, KJ, is a lot of us know those feelings, but don't know or have a reference for healing from them. So we think that that's just what it's going to be, how it's supposed to be. Dudes who've been abandoned by their father or mother or whatever the case may be, done dirty, poor parenting, will do the same thing to their children and just be like, and have no answers. The thing in me that I've always known, I remember I was on a bus one time. I was like 14 years old. And I'm coming home and I fell asleep and I felt the tap on my shoulder. I woke up. It was my next stop. Like, that thing that I've always known since I was a kid. was like, nah, bruh, that's not what we doing. That's not what we doing.
That's
So
not
what
what
I
it is.
want now is a wave of people who have been through this going, I'm committed to turning this boat around. I'm committed to getting off this boat because this is a sinking ship, you know, and we're going to do what it needs to be done to create solutions to this space. And I got some solutions for you. Listen, I got, you know what I mean? So it's just when I start, we start a podcast in 2 weeks, and we're gonna start talking about these things. And I'd love for y'all, whoever's listening, you know, please, if first of all, shout out to all my fam, you know, who are listening and plugged in now. Nicole, I see you. Thank you so much. From Caressence Massage, like I didn't even know you were still doing that. That's dope. Jonathan, I see you. In Tiffany, I see you. Just the comments that I saw pop up. Thank y'all so much, man, because I've been like, the podcast is going to be called The Right Now Brothers, RIGHTNOWBROS. Follow that on Instagram, on Facebook. There's a little bit of commentary on it, a little bit of content now, but we're getting ready to load it up, and that's the next move. I've been so mysterious. You know what I mean? I've been so mysterious. Nobody know. For the longest time, nobody even knew my government name. You know what I mean? Like, and it's because I've never been able to connect with nobody. Because when you're kidnapped, and it wires you a certain way. I've been always this weirdo, right? And poetry is already a bunch of outcasts and weirdos. You know what I mean? So I'm a weirdo amongst the weirdos, and I know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying to y'all is thank y'all for just whatever it is that I did or said that connected with you. I appreciate it so much that you were able to express that love back to me, because that helped keep me going. That helped build me. I can't do nothing without y'all. You know what I mean? And so I know I've been quiet, but I had to heal. You know what I'm saying? I can't. I had to do that by myself. So now that I'm coming out of this healing space, I'm coming back with a whole listen and
Right.
yeah. So I'm gunning for everybody who's been rocking with me from day 1, day 2, day 3, day 5, day 20. We about to listen. I'm not playing no games this time, man. You know what I mean? So
Right.
the podcast is gonna be crazy, and y'all gonna like how we do it too, because I have an editing session this week where, you know, I'm showing love to all our poets who are in this area, but we're doing it in a real slick way that I don't see nobody doing. So just tap in right now, brothers. That's me and my brother Testimony. RIGHTNOWBROS. Follow on IG and Facebook, and the content in the podcast start in 2 weeks.
All right. Who knew? We talk about the poet and the platform here. Who knew we was gonna get a whole new platform?
Yeah,
I
man.
was about to start talking about, you know, when I met you and you were hosting shows then, and now you're hosting shows now. So I was gonna start talking about the show that
Oh,
you're
yeah.
hosting, and it's a whole new platform that's about to happen, and I didn't even know. So let's talk a little bit about that. I've been to the show. I heard there's some changes that's being made. So let's talk a little bit about because let me tell you, we used to always call the host with the most, right? The host with the most. We used to always say that because this dude be hosting.
Man,
Master of ceremony type of hosting.
Man, let me tell y'all. First of all, one of my most valuable possessions is my hottie, my HOTY 2007 New Sport Host of the Year. You know what I mean? I still got that plaque. I still got that, not plaque, that trophy.
Wow.
And I'm gonna tell you, you know, and this is listen what I'm saying here. Hear my heart when I say this. The best example of this is I was in DC. Forget the name of the spot. It was right across from Droopy's spot. Droopy's spot shut down or moved to DC, moved to U Street, and this spot was right across the street. I'm in a poetry spot, and it was a dude who was a cross-dresser, white dude, you know, reading a poem off of paper and doing what he does, right? And it was funny. He was making some jokes about life, blah, 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 blah. 2 poets later, it was this rapper from DC. And when I say this dude had bars, like somebody got bars, and you can still remember what they said 10 years later, right? Well, maybe this was like 13, 14, so almost 10 years. This dude was like, my weed man is the best. God keep blessing me. You know, the blunts have no seeds, like they got a vasectomy. You know what I mean? I'm messing it up, but that was the line. I was like, this dude is nice. My point is, from early on, I saw how spoken word was like a community of broken people who all had some level of pain, some level of dysfunction, some level of something to them that caused them to be here. That's why you're here, because you want to say something that you feel. Okay. And usually it wasn't very celebratory. It wasn't very pleasant and happy. It was always something challenging that you're speaking on. And I noticed that early on. And so what I did was I wanted to be like, yo, you know what? There is no other, the church doesn't provide this platform. It just doesn't, because you got to be of a certain blah, blah, blah. This is the one space where anybody can come to and speak and be embraced. And I feel like that was very healthy.
True.
Yeah. I felt like it was very healthy. It was a lot of healing that could come from that. So I recognized that, and I wanted to always be an agent of healing, to say, yo, you can't go. And I seen some things early on at Java Head that where I was like, yo, you know what? I'm glad you're doing that crazy shit here rather than taking it out in traffic, taking it out on somebody else, taking it out on your girl. Come do it here. Come here. Come here. Get it out. Get it out. Woo! And then I'm gonna hug you and be like, bro, you good? You know what I mean? You need a drink, you need a tea, you good? And show you some love. Come back next week. You know what I mean? So that gives you. So for me, it was very important because I needed it as well. And Tommy from Martin, God bless the dead, you know, he was doing a show in recruiting artists in this area, and he said something to me. I don't know. Somebody else was there who could vouch for this. You might be listening. He said, we were praying backstage, and he said the job of an artist is to heal. And I've always knew that. As soon as he said it, I was like, "Yup." I resonated with that from early on. And then I added, my spirit added something to it to say, the first individual that you heal is yourself. Yes. So what you're speaking and where you're speaking from is a healed space. And it's like, we all got pain, bro. We all got pain. But what I've noticed is that a lot of people live with the pain. But, you know, I try to teach my daughter this. I said, what makes more sense, to deal with pain or to heal from pain?
What a word. What a word.
So the hosting thing was just seeing all the pain we were in and going, yeah, we need this. Come. We need this. Everybody pull up. You good here. You're going to get some love. And, you know, truthfully, it's a lot of crazy shit that crazy stuff that I even didn't. I was like,
you can curse here. It's fine.
I was like, bruh, yo, you or sis, like, you are all the way bugging. Like, all the way bugging. Like, you don't even know how you sound right now, right? But come, let's learn together, let's love on you, let's grow together, let's heal. You know, none of us got it together. So I'm saying you tripping, but I know at that time I wasn't winning no awards with my daughter. And you ain't never heard a poem about that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we all got issues. So I'm not gonna trip on you. That's another thing I notice a lot of people don't do. They quick to trip on somebody else and act like they ain't got. We all got issues. So I know you tripping, but you can't necessarily help with my issue. But I know I got it. So I ain't gonna trip on you. You know what I mean? We gonna just heal together.
Right. That's good. I usually ask what the job of the host is, but I definitely like the job of the artist, because yeah, we do be healing some things and definitely connecting with some people. You've gone to venues before and said, hey, you know, I didn't know anybody else was going through that, or somebody else had been through that, right? So it is healing to see someone standing there and saying and looking healed, even if you're not healed, right? Looking like you healed. So maybe I can heal from that certain thing, right?
You know, the healing is a you know, you mentioned earlier that some people don't recognize that they're broken. And don't recognize that they need it. You're right. Like, healing is a conscious. I decided I needed to do this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And luckily, and again, we all have the tools. We all have it. You know, your breath is your tool. Your inhalation is your connection to God. That's all you need, right? But it's the desire. Do I want to go and have these conversations? Do I want to talk? I flew down, you know, Ud died in June. I flew down to Miami in August and then took a train from Miami to Orlando to talk to my mother, you know what I mean? And go, let me try. I'm the child, I'm the son. Let me try. Didn't go so good. You know what I mean? I ended up throwing furniture across the room because, you know, this person is just hardened in their reality and not open to hearing anything else. That, you know, you see it this way. Okay, well, I see it this way. You don't hear what I'm saying. You just like, you know what I mean? Like, and then, you know, tripping off of me because I'm saying to you something that affected me. And you're like, why is it affecting you? Because I was 10. That's why. Because I was 10 when that happened. And you can't get that. You know what I mean? So it was like me going down there. It was like, all right, I'm going to try. only to realize that the healing that I was looking for was all to happen here. Like it all needed to happen here. I'm trying to connect and maybe get something. Wasn't possible. You know, I came back to my Brooklyn brothers, shot to Dave and Phil. Paul called me today. Paul called me today too. And I came at my Brooklyn brothers knowing that the teaching that we all learned as Christians says that if I'm not confessing blah, 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 then your job now is to shun me. So the fact that we grew up together and we got the same address, we got the same PIN code to our ATMs, I come back 22 years later and I already knew, you know what I mean? But it's like, yo, you got to do it. Like, I got to come back anyway. So I got to face all of these very hard, very difficult situations and go, you know, respect to the G's, respect to the gangsters, respect to the thugs, respect to whatever the UFC fighters.
Mm-hmm.
Look me in my face, right? When I tell you that the hardest thing that I have had to do was heal.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can knock me out. Okay. I'm gonna get up. Okay. I might have a broken jaw. Okay. But these people, that's over with. It's done.
Yeah.
These people aren't going anywhere. And I have to, you know, I gotta figure out a way to I gotta, or not. And then
Or
deal
not.
and
Or
then
not.
and find a way to be okay with that. And these are like, you know, the most important thing in the world is family. This is my family. Like, I come back from 22 from a 33 year, you know, I have an auntie, I got a picture with her, you know what I mean, in 2020, 2 years ago. The last time I saw her, I was 10 years old. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's what I'm dealing with. That's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
dealing with. And then my other brothers, the last time I saw them, you know, my one brother, last time I saw him, he was 12 years old. My Brooklyn brother, who I met when I came to Brooklyn. 2 years ago, I reconnect with the fam and learn that he's doing 40. You know what I mean? And it's like the way you holding your daughter in your arms, that's how I held him.
Wow.
That's how I held Paul. He was 1 when I met him.
That's
I
crazy.
taught him how to tie his shoes. I taught him his ABCs. I taught him how to read. I used to hold him like everybody knew Paul was like my little brother. You know, I leave when he's 12, when he's 12 years old. 22 years later, I come back and this little boy is doing 40. He called me today. You know what I mean? Like, I can't explain that. Like, that's not you know what I'm saying? And it's like, yeah, yo. So I just had to heal, man. And some of it is harder than others. Some pieces are harder than others, but I had to do it.
I like the word healing too, because it's showing, you know, as a verb, like to something that you're actually doing. You're not healed, but we're healing. We're in the process of, right? And when in someone who's been through trauma, right, it's a process. It's a process. So definitely. But listen, I definitely want to talk about, because it's been a lot of years since you've done shows, and I definitely want to get in the new show, the physical. We talked about the podcast, and we're gonna do a lot of healing there, clearly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, we just doing shows for fun. We in our 20s, right? So it's something new that you're doing and different. What's different about it, and what's new? Like, what's the new focus, right? Because now we do things with a purpose of reasoning, right? You're just doing things. So back in the day, we did things because we could. We had an art. We could do it. We can because we can. Now it is a reason, right?
So
what's the new reason now?
I would call it back then the discovery or exploratory process. Now it's the focus. And the focus is the things I'm doing different with this show. And we got to pick a date because we got to change venues for October. So the new date is coming. Y'all just follow me. I'm going to be announcing it in a little bit. Okay. The focus is I want to sit these artists down in the middle of the show and interview them and talk about some real things. Like, you know, whenever you see a Beyonce interview, whenever you see one, she scripts the questions. So I always, you know, and I've done it just twice so far, where I'm going, what would you like to speak about? Is there anything you would like to present and put out there? And, you know, speak on for the sake of whatever it is that you want to speak on. Because that's one of the, we talk about and I say all the time, the story behind a poem or a song is usually better than the poem or the song, So we speak on the things in these little 3-minute capsules, but there's no way that that's all there is to that story. So let's talk about, your life. Let's talk about what's really meaningful. And, the question you asked to begin with, like one of the reasons why I say I like that question, and I don't like that question, how long you've been writing, like I never asked that, you know what I mean? And I never asked that because it's like, you probably either expect me to, or, I want to ask something that speaks to something that is a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like your purpose. Like, what are you doing? What is your end goal here? Where are you going with this? You know what I mean? Because to me, my focus is always in front. My focus is always in the future. And a lot of people sometimes will be like, well, like my answer is selfish. Just for me, it's this, that, and the third. But the thing about it with me is, like, I always knew what I said, and I also always knew what I wasn't saying. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I know me. I'm going to say it's for me. It's selfish. It's therapy, blah, 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 blah. But I also knew, I was kidnapped by a preacher. The book at one point, I was going to call it three preachers, 2 kids, and 1 kidnapping. You know what I mean? Who do you tell that you were kidnapped when the person who kidnapped you is preaching every Sunday? And I like that word kidnap, because I want you to feel how I felt, because that's what happened, and at the end of the day, like, what solutions do we as a community have for these spaces? And and these are old problems. I used to think I was so isolated and alone. These are old problems. This is nothing. There's a bunch of people kidnapped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like, when you hear the story, the thing is, now you don't know. That's why I said, when did you know you were kidnapped, right? Because like somebody's gonna be listening right now, right? And they're gonna realize, oh, I was kidnapped. Like they don't even know, right? Yeah. There's a lot of people. That's why I say it's a lot of people in Black people community, definitely, that don't realize what trauma is, right? And we've been through trauma, we've been coping with it, we've been living with it. I had fibroids, and the doctor said to me, "Are you in pain?" And I said, "Nope." She said, "You have to be in pain. I think you've been in pain so long you don't even realize it."
Oh, wow.
And I think that's a lot. That says a lot for us in our mental health, right? That you've been in pain so long you don't realize it. That's just you're just coping with it, right?
Yeah, that's your norm.
That's still moving. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's your normal. Yeah, it's your norm, but it's not normal. Your norm isn't normal.
It's not healthy. Yeah, your norm isn't healthy, and it's definitely not normal.
Right.
But
to
the point, what we, to be African American, to be melanated in America, is to be oppressed. Is to have your resources, you know what I mean, set at a disadvantage. Is to have all the challenges that we've known ever since we've been here at whatever level, whether you got a little money, your parents had a little money, or not. You know what I mean? And when I say whatever level, I have a good friend of mine 2 years ago, graduated from Howard University 2 years ago. This is a 40-year-old woman who we're talking. I'll never forget this conversation. It was in the middle of the pandemic, and I told her about Oklahoma City. I told her about it. Graduated from Howard. She was mad. Why? How I go to Howard and I've never heard of this? Oppression. That's why. It's because your education is managed. Your information is managed. So it doesn't matter that you're a post-grad, PhD, blah, blah, blah. You're whatever you're doing, whatever system, whatever ascensions you're making is in a system that people who look like you did not create. Those standards were not created by you. That's oppression. So when you're in a country that claims to be free, but there are 2 kinds of Americans. There's white people and they're quote unquote minorities. And, granted, we're being called minorities by people who made it okay to lick dogs in the mouth. Okay. But at the end of the day, there is no movement on our end as melanated people to run shit, to like, okay, the Jews faced a significant oppression in the Holocaust. We would not look at them now and say they're still oppressed that way. They have their own hospitals, own schools, own everything, and they have own foothold in society, right? You're in the foxhole so long you think you're home. Foothold in society that the movie industry is run by Jews. The entertainment, the attorney industry, lawyers. Everybody knows, get you a Jewish lawyer. Okay, so they got a foothold. Amish people, I don't know what oppression they dealt with, but they got their own everything. They come to the farmers market. We go, we buy these stuff. They go, and we never see them again. They ride buggies, but they on their own terms. Jehovah's Witnesses don't vote. They don't participate in the system. They choose not to. The only thing that makes you a Jehovah's Witness is a decision. That's not something you're entitled to. You just decide to be that.
Right.
Mormons have 17 wives or 17 children, multiple wives and a whole bunch of children. That's their own term. They're polygamous, their own terms. Melanated people have, we're trying, now we feel like we have a leg up because the sister just won the justice position and Kamala Harris is from Jamaica. Okay, that's cool. But bruh, unless you are deciding, it's not a W.
Mm-hmm.
Not a W. It's just not. Our agenda needs to change. My agenda is the people who are the powers that be need to look like me. Period.
Mm-hmm. Now that's a whole word.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a pause because that's a good segue to your next piece, and I know that my co-host wants to ask you questions.
Oh,
and I know, yes, my co-hosts are going to want to ask some questions, and some people might want to ask some questions. If we got plenty of comments, people might want to ask a question. So I'm going to continue to rock your Nisi here. I'm gonna ask you for another piece. I'm gonna bring back my co-hostess, sis. And we gonna continue with some little healing. We're gonna continue.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna remove and give you the screen.
Okay. This man, I actually wrote this poem in like 2013. It's not one I really performed. I think I might perform it once. But it speaks to this healing thing, right? Let me see if I can get through this. It's called Medicine Man. You can't feel a cut closing, but you can feel it bust open. Pain is just potent, and we all have open wounds. You came hoping to hear a good word, a sound voice, a second opinion, a third choice, a shake, a shout, an escape route. Hear a bridge to elsewhere, a moving truck. You felt here you could be moved and touched by some art, the heart like precious china, beautiful but breakable if moved too rough. Too rough like the abused child that still lives in your adult, and roughed up like the little girl that lives in your wife. She cried. My bad. Too rough like the abused child that lives in your adult, and a cool rough like the smooth smile of your cheating husband. Roughed up like the little girl that lives in your wife. She cried when you roughed her up last night because your day was rough, like your father who still lives in you. We all have open wounds. Need a little stitching, a little medicine. I've been listening. And it seems all these poets ever sing is pain and problems with no ways to solve them. So I'm spitting prescriptions, a mixture of new wordplay and old wisdom. Because I don't write for you, but I can feel you hearing me. And when I speak from here in me, words hit the air and be medicinal. I'm saying some things older than you, but brand new. Hey, you, anyone ever told you that you have to allow your past to hold you back? You heard whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But did you know that if it hasn't killed you by now, it can't kill you any longer? Victory is a decision. Misery loves company, so look around. Now look up. I got your hook up. This right here for you right there. I can laugh with you or cry for you like grown men do. I can forget for you. I am your medicine man. What can I get for you? Your favorite summer, your first kiss. For you, I can make that sperm miss. I can make you turn 6 every birthday. You would never be 7. So you would never have heard that irreverent reverend who made you close that door and lock it. You would never have entered that closet. So now you are not scared of the dark. I could wear your heart on my sleeve to keep it from being broken. I could be that song or that poem for you to hide inside while I read out loud on a stage to a crowd full of strangers the pain from your diary that you always skip, that you always wanted to rip out and throw away, but that won't help you forget about it or make it go away. It was not your fault. He did not get caught. She did not believe you. He beat you. I can make your father be honest and keep his promise to come see you. I can be you for a few. So you don't have to be alone. Cut. We all have open wounds that sometimes get spoken to. We all been cut, but then what? What are you going to do to sew your cuts up? Because after the collapse, you just crash back face first, still have to face your hurt, pain like fingerprints, the same but different. We all know the feeling when someone starts speaking with some feeling about something you were feeling, and it's so real, and you get that feeling, and the cycle continues. Well, I'm speaking about the healing, and it ain't so appealing because it ain't much of a feeling. I don't want you to feel me. You don't feel medicine sliding under your skin, climbing up your spine, crossing your mind, bowing at your temples, knocking on your eyelids, open sesame. And this delivery is a recipe for the better me inside you. But I got to remind you to fight the feeling, because feelings unbridled will blind you. Your healing starts with the mind. True, the pain you hear, you can relate to. But pain can't save you from itself. But it can keep you exactly where you are as long as it's felt and the cycle continues. Your mind is the venue. But until you change the imposters on the roster and the items on the menu, the cycle continues. Thank you for inviting me in you, allowing me to cry with you. Sorry, but this isn't something you just feel. Still, I left you a prescription for you to feel till you need me again. Your medicine man. Cut. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Colin. How are you?
I'm good, love.
I'm so excited. I was so excited to see that you were coming back. I couldn't make the show last week, but 2 weeks. No, but I know there'll be more.
Yeah, that one was historical. It was epic. My daughter in the front row, hearing me. You know what I mean? Like that. I've never felt anything like that in my life. You know what I mean? So that was just my personal little glory moment right there.
I completely get it. Yeah. During your interview, you mentioned that because I remember the last time I saw you, it was 8 years ago, right here in Washington, D.C. outside of Mic Check was the last time I saw you in person. My question is, so you mentioned that you've taken this time to heal and deal with your personal traumas. What makes you feel that now that's your time ready to represent yourself now?
Because I no longer feel the need to keep this secret. I no longer feel the need to, anytime somebody asks me about my daughter, to change the subject. I no longer feel this embarrassing tug that, this ain't right. Like you can't keep. I no longer feel that. Like I could text my daughter and she texts me back. She take a while. We work on that, but because my biggest flex in life is not BET. My biggest flex is that when I text my daughter, she texts me back. My biggest flex is that my daughter does not have to feel that when I die, she's not going to give a shit. That's my flex. So that's what's driving me now. And so we at the show. Rebecca comes up. She's the only sister on the stage. I'm driving her back to college. I got her, Archie, and Black Chakra in the back. And she's in the front. She goes, did that poem? I was like, what do you think? She's like, that poem Rebecca did. The lady with the straight backs. I saw that on my TikTok. I was like, what? She goes, did she write that? I go, yeah, that's her poem. She wrote that. She goes, wow, that's so cool. I saw it on TikTok and I get to see it in person. Wow, that right there.
I get it. I completely get it. My children won't come see me because they know because you're known for doing sex poems. But when they heard that I was doing something else for the Mystics, they're like, okay, yeah, now we understand. It's not just that. So, but they're just not ready to see me in person yet. And I'm like, it's all right, whenever y'all ready.
Listen, come let me tell you how you got here.
Right? They're embarrassed. So the other question now in my segment, I always ask a question about using a stage name, using over your government name. The way I'm going to rephrase this question is that you've gone from complex to calm to Mr. Keep on Moving. Explain the transition.
So Complex started, I was in a group called School of Higher Learning, shot to Cherry and Javi. This is 1999. This is 2000, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, bruh, you need a name. Cherry was Black Cherry, Javi was I can't remember, Amir. And they were like, you need a name. And I was like, yo, I need something that fits my style. And I had a very heavy internal rhyme scheme back then. I still kind of do, but it takes a while to write like that. So I had a very deep rhyme scheme. It was very complicated and complex. But there was like, I was like complex, but I was like, everybody's going to spell it with a K. With a C. So I spelled it with a K because my given name is Kirk Bernard. It starts with a K. So then I was like, that's cool. But then a couple years later, I had elders calling me Complex, and I just didn't feel like it, just felt weird. So it became an acronym for me. I needed something else out of it. So I made it Keep on Moving, Push Limitations, Exceed Expectations. Then it was just like, yo, it's too long. I don't like it. And there's a bunch of other dudes named Complex with a K. So I was like, you know what? Keep on Moving is really me. Like that's my movement is medicine. So keep on moving. Then I was like, how do you keep on moving? And I feel like an uncle in the game. I got stripes now. You go give me my Mister. You know what I mean? So now it's just Mr. Keep on Moving. So it's an evolution of to be honest with you, I might change it again. I ain't gonna hold you. You know what I mean? But it's just an evolution of where I was at the time. Just an artist being an artist. Like, why'd you wear your hair to the left? Because I was praying and the moon hit my forehead. You know what I'm saying? On a particular angle, and it made my forehead warm. Exactly. You know what I mean? So just an artist being an artist and going through changes, going through motions.
All right, I completely understand. As KaNikki said, when I came onto the poetry scene 13, 14 years ago, KaNikki and Calm were here. And they were definitely some of the hosts that events that I attended back in the day. So I'm very excited. Right before the show, the video that KaNikki sent us was For Heaven in View, which has always been my favorite piece from you. And I was so happy, just like, because again, it was one of those moments I'm like, I realized I haven't heard this poem in ages. So I was really excited to listen to that today. I will shut up now, let my team.
Can I tell you, I want to, for everybody who's out there listening, who has blah, 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 this Sister Tamar asked me to write a poem to come to her HIV youth group. And, I call it procrastinating. Mm-hmm. I wrote that poem, my hand to God. I wrote that poem in the car on the way to the show.
Ooh. Wow.
And yeah, no lie. And it's like the biggest moment, like, and it's it is what it is. About 2 years after I wrote the poem and started performing it, I was at a venue in Baltimore. I was by a sister in Baltimore at my job. I did the poem. The sister comes up to me afterwards and was like, that was my sister.
Wow.
Nothing you write is fiction. It's not fiction.
Yeah, I straight away from the fiction, man.
And for anybody watching, I'm pretty sure everybody that is watching has heard this poem before. It is available out on YouTube, Lyric Cafe. Definitely go watch it. It is an amazing piece. Okay, now I'm going to be quiet.
I was in the house multitasking and listening, and then having to stop and just literally my face is poured into the screen just listening. It's a very, very intense interview, and I thoroughly enjoyed your pouring out tonight, Mr. Keep on Moving. I have enjoyed it. I have a couple questions though, based on some of the things I've heard. One, from my segment, Passion Projects, one of the questions I ask at the very end is if you had a billboard that was dedicated to your words, that something, your quote, something you would say that would live on, it would stay posted even past you being on this earth, what would your billboard say?
If you have the option to be amazing, why choose anything else?
Love that. Wow.
I put it in a haiku, and it's something I shared with my daughter, where the reason behind it was I had to be amazing to heal this.
Yeah.
It would be amazing to look you in your eye, look your mother in her eye, look your stepfather in his eye and say thank you. I had to be amazing. Don't I wasn't sent here to be basic. That is not your purpose of life. That is a limitation that you've accepted, but that is not, and it doesn't feel good, and it's very not inspiring. So if
Yeah.
you have the option to be amazing, why be anything else?
I love that. That's so convicting, right? Because it challenges you on every level. If the question is already posed, if you have the option to be amazing, so automatically you're put in a position to acknowledge that that is my option off the muscle, right?
That's
So
awesome.
that's awesome. That's awesome. I have another question for you. So, and I'm trying to posture it correctly so it makes sense. One of the things I've learned from my own personal experiences with my parents, my parents, and the questionable decisions that they've made that have impacted my life, things you talked about tonight, and then becoming the adult child, contending with the decisions. And at some point, like you said in your poem, victory is a choice. At some point, choosing something different. One of the things I've learned from my personal experiences, as well professionally as a social worker and working with families and people, is that people operate out of what they know as well. So what I mean by that is, have you ever considered or have you thought about how you had conversations or dealt with the trauma that your parents may have experienced to have impacted their poor decisions as well?
One of the tools that really helped me heal was, as an affirmation every day, I forgive my ancestors, I forgive my parents, I forgive myself. Because and then last year I had a couple birthday presents. One of the birthday presents was the Creator. I was sitting on a bench outside. I'll never forget this as long as I live, outside the gym. And I was asking this question, like, how do you forgive? Like, in the faith space, there's a lot of stuff that sounds good that doesn't really hold any real water or make any real connections. It just sounds good and everybody interprets it. Yeah. Forgiveness is one of them. It's like, how do you just let go? What you mean? Like, what you mean? What does that mean? What is the brain process? What is the 1, 2, 3, ABC? What are the steps? I'm sitting outside the gym and the Creator. So you take a deep breath and you take a bird's eye perspective, what I call a top-down perspective. You elevate yourself, still look at you, and just rise above. Now look at you. Now look at your parents. Now you see the path directly, right? Because that's you to your parents. Now imagine their path.
Yep.
And what they had, what they dealt with, decisions they made, mental health, good information, bad information, how they were negotiating it. People always say when I speak on these things, well, they did the best they could. Did they? Is that an opinion or a fact? The best is a choice. The best is, okay, this isn't good enough. I'm going to do better. If that conversation isn't had, then that's not the best. That's the formula for best. That means you had to neglect something that wasn't good enough at some point. I can't really see where that happened. So I'm not going to make any statements that sound good, assumptions that sound good. I'm going to look at it objectively and say, this is one human being navigating this path in whatever way, whatever they were given. They have an objective, they have a purpose in life, and they did what they did and made those decisions. Now, here I am coming from those two human beings doing the exact same thing. And I had to take all the feelings off. That's not my mother, that's another human being. That's not my father, that's another human being. Well, I don't really have much texture to really even connect the mother-father piece. So it's actually easy for me. You know what I mean? And when you have these poor decisions that put so much space between you and these parental units, which is a lot of our story, that becomes easier to go, oh, okay, that's just another human being making decisions, doing things based on blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to assume anything for them. I'm not going to give them I'm going to give them the benefit of some doubt, but I'm not going to give them anything. I'm just going to look at it objectively and go, okay, now here I am. What are you supposed to do? And then the B to this is your future is way more important than your past. So even if you can't figure any of this out back here, it's not as important as what's in front of you. So don't give it that much energy because you'll get stuck there. But there's no way to really get stuck here. This is a path that you create as you move. You can't do much with what's back here. So that's another reconciliation tool to be able to go, there's some things I'll never get the answer to. Some things will never make sense. It's not that important. It's not as important as what's in front of you. What's more important, your rear view mirror or your windshield?
Gotcha. That's a powerful point. Powerful point. I got one more question too. So this is awesome. You spoke about healing. The whole night just felt like a healing session and poetry and that kind of thing. Do you see poetry, spoken word, creative expression as a gateway to healing, or can one find healing in the poetry?
I think we need to remember that every individual has his or her own path to navigate.
Yeah.
And KaNikki brought up a great point. She said everybody is not aware that they're in need of healing.
Yeah.
And at that point, then if you have a room full of 30 people, you'd never know what percentage each person or the group is mixed at and what percentage each person represents. I think it's more important for you to focus on being, if you're aware, if you are enlightened, if you are of the mindset, I walk into a room now and I go, these are all broken people. We're all broken. That's not an insult. It's not a criticism. You're broken. Whether you admit it or not, whether you recognize it or not, whether you got a PhD or. So from there, the room is leveled. For me, the room is leveled. We're all here. And I might have this level of awareness. I might be aware to blah, blah, blah. Okay. My job now is to lift the whole room. My job is to illuminate the room. Now, there's no effort in that. It's just the being. To go, if I have this information, if I'm a man who has healed his relationship with his daughter, if I'm a man who is recovered and healed from abandonment, from being kidnapped, my words now, what I'm speaking on is not about, and in my flex, I talk about flex, it's not about, I got the dopest punchline anymore.
Yeah.
It's about, yo, bruh, me and you now are in the car. A month ago, we're in the car coming back from the show, and you're like, yo, for real. So I ain't seen my daughter in 4 years, bro. And blah, 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 blah. And last week you went and saw him because I hope that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Because when you look at it, if you're in a room, now granted, poetry is not exclusive to melanated people, but if you're in a room with melanated people, you got to understand whether you a dope poet, you got the slickest rhymes, or you abstract and your poem don't rhyme, they will murder you. They are not on your side. There is clearly a they. We and the us need to recognize that, move from that space going, only us are going to help us. So when I talk to this brother and I say, yo, bruh, the thing you need to do to get back in your child's life is imagine yourself there. Is use that tool that they taught you, blah, blah, blah. That, and I'm not going to call it certain things because it's going to sound different to you, but visualization, yes, do that. I knew my daughter was going to email me. Why? Because I wrote it down. So now that 7 years later, she's right here next to me, you looking at me going, bruh, you have no idea how much healing this is to me. That's how I walk in the room now, going, my story is as weird as it is. It's not just for me. It's for me to go, yo, I was sent here to heal my people. I was sent here to lift my people. So what I'm speaking to is no longer about being the dopest on the mic, my guy. Like, that's cute. That's cool. I've been that. And I've been not that. Okay. But my daughter is in the show. Like, talk to me nice, my guy. And I know the DJ pulling, because I know his situation, talking to me going, bro, you have no idea how much this is doing for me. Right? That's what it's about. So when you understand that, you move with a level of obligation and purpose.
Yeah.
I'm obliged to share this light. I'm obliged to speak on this because I'm lucky. A lot of us know pain. A lot of us don't know healing.
Yeah. Most of that. A lot of us. Thank you.
Whew.
Thank you.
Thank you. Com, we have a question. Ken Brown is the poet known as Analysis and our secret male member, as we call him. He says, unfortunately, I never made it to any one of the game nights you used to host, as though I wanted to. Do you see that as a part of community healing, or was that before you were consciously thinking about such?
Bro, that was a check, man. You got to keep multiple streams. I host any. Listen, you asked me to host, and I'm pulling up. I would host game nights, divorce parties. Listen, I was hosting it all. You know what I mean? It was a check. Yeah, it was a check. You hustling, man. Like we was. I didn't have the luxury of saying no to things at some points. You know what I mean? It was like, what? I was hosting zombie runs, flying all around the country. I don't know about no damn zombies, but I'm on like just this crazy trajectory of learning and seeing different things. So it was a hustle move, bro. At this point, like I said, I turned 46. So at this point, to me, everything is purposeful. So now that I'm moving from this space, everything I do moving forward is going to be purposeful, and it's definitely about not only healing, it's about self-governance, having the agenda of self-governance, having the agenda of true freedom. Freedom means the people who make the decisions for you look like you. So that's what the agenda is in 2022, where 2 years ago, we seeing George Floyd get murdered like a dog in the streets. And that's the one we heard about.
Right.
So let's put it on, let's really put it on the table. What's happening here? And let's understand that what's wrong with the world is who's in charge of it. Because what would the world look like if brown people were in charge?
That's something that I never ever thought about. Never ever thought about.
Yep.
I think about it. I live in DC. Brown people's in charge. I don't want to get into that argument, but it's okay. I won't do it. I won't do it.
No, we're not. Yeah. But what we will do, Danielle, Curl Genius, it is about that time.
It is. I was about to say, I have two statements and your very last question of the night. So first one is, I want to put out that this is probably one of the most riveting interviews I've sat through. Like, I literally could not peel myself away out of my chair listening to this story. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely one that's going to be you're going to want to go back to this, people who are out there and missed it, and y'all suck for missing this. You're going to want to go back so you don't miss this anymore.
Spotify, put your YouTube on.
Hey, I can't do nothing. I told you where it was. Two, you've mentioned a couple times like poets are broken people. You made me think of a line that I have been sitting on for a while. And the line is, let me switch screens so I can quote it. I said, poetry is what happens when you put a bunch of broken toys in the same room and you try to recreate Toy Story. And I feel like it just kept coming up. I was like, oh my gosh. It's like you're right. Poetry is the scene is full of broken people who do not necessarily understand that they're broken. That's gonna stick with me for a while. And I'm gonna go ahead and ask the last question. And I'm it's the hardest question you'll answer all night. I say this every single time, and no one believes me until they go to answer it. Now I'm gonna be super curious about your answer, because you were actually the answer the last time I asked this question a couple of weeks ago. Like,
thanks. You were the answer.
Somebody else asked the question, and you were the answer.
Wow.
Right?
Yep.
So, true story. So, the question is this. The last question is always, now that you've done the show and you've been on KaNikki's segment, which is Poets and Platforms, and Miss Cayenne's segment is Passion Projects, and Sherry's segment is From Behind the Microphone, and mine is Let's Talk About the ... And you got the gist of the explanations. Who do you think would make a good guest on the show? Whose brain should we pick?
Wow.
You were the answer a couple of weeks ago, which is
Was that KJ? Was that you who said me?
No, Droopy did.
Droopy did.
Droopy did.
Yeah, you know, I saw that show. I didn't see that part, but I saw most of that show.
Yep.
Who would make a good guest on this show? My first answer is actually Archie the Messenger.
On the list. We need
on the list. We have not had him yet.
Yeah,
He's definitely on there.
That's my first answer. And I'm going to just say, because, you know, I watched that brother grow. And when I say grow, I'm not talking about on a mic. You know what I mean? I met him in Buffalo. He had to be like 16, 17. Then he came down to Baltimore and started just murking the scene. And you know, I've seen Archie. I've seen, as dope as anybody's familiar with Archie, as dope as Archie is. Mm-hmm. I've seen Archie bomb.
Wow.
At a show, and I've seen just what he was doing. And you know, I've bombed. Like, I'd be the first to tell you, I bombed. Me and the Fifth L got booed off the stage one time. You know what I mean? And they was mad at me because I was like, yes, this happened to Lauryn Hill. Yes, good company. Yeah, Lauryn Hill got booed off the Apollo.
Yeah.
Sure did.
So, yeah. So I've seen Archie bomb. I've seen Archie, you know, me and Archie had a conversation a couple weeks ago where I was like, oh, got you. And I feel like the reality of what he is going through now as a human being, as a man, if he was to put in, you know, the interview space, and speak on it, I think it would be very powerful and very inspirational to a lot of people.
He's definitely been on the list. Again, I say this, and it's true. We had a list. We've been working off the original list since the beginning. We have never gotten through the original list. We always add people. People suggest people, or like we have to bump people around because of their schedules or ours. But I promise you, we're gonna get this list at some point. But yeah, Archie was definitely like one of the first people we were like, we need to have him on here.
Yeah, so we definitely will make that happen.
Yeah,
as soon as we can, because if you've been around, you know we are coming into October. Y'all know, come the Christmas holiday seasons, we're off the air. So you know we only got a couple of more weeks left in this month. So the first thing we're going, this year, I'm sorry. So the first thing I want everyone to do that is in the back chat, of course, is to please give a huge round of applause for our feature this evening, Mr. Keep On Moving. And welcome back. Thank you. I'm so happy to hear. I'm so happy that you're back.
Yay.
Me too.
We will be back next week with our Let's Talk. Okay, so we're going to let y'all in a little bit behind the scenes. More often than not, we are live and we are streaming, and this is a live interview. In order for us to be able to get the artist for next week, we had to pre-tape the interview. So it will be a pre-taped interview with Daniel.
But
you're gonna want to watch it.
Totally worth it.
Totally
I will tell you that interview was crazy. So we have Obi West next week.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Next
week.
Obi
so trying to get schedules together was like insane. And so we finally got this. And so now this interview is happening next week.
Yeah, so we're going to post it next week. And the main reason I bring it up now is that the following week is Indigenous Peoples Weekend. We will not be on. So then we will be back on the 16th of October. So that's the only reason why we're letting you in on the fact that interview was pre-recorded.
Yes. But please know we'll be all watching. So if you have any questions, you can still post your questions in the chat, and then there'll be answers in the chat.
Yes,
it's still interactive as well. And
you're
definitely going to have a question for Obi.
Yeah.
You definitely, yeah. Like I said, we were in the interview and we're like, yeah, we need to be in there. I'm ready to watch it again.
Yeah. I'm excited to watch this back.
Yeah. So
all the things.
Yeah, we're looking forward to watching it back. So everyone, please stay safe, wash your hands, stay well. Remember, we know what everybody's talking about, the big disease everybody's talking about, but it is flu season. So please stay well. I just got family members that are just getting over pneumonia and walking pneumonia in the past week. So everybody, please do your best to stay healthy.
Yeah, and if you're and I will also say stay healthy, and if you're out of state, watch all the hurricane activity too.
Exactly. Hurricane. Yes. So stay safe as best you can. And we will see y'all all back here again soon. And good night.
Good night.